Welcome to Music Plus Online. Today we're going to be talking about the basics of jazz drumming. More specifically, how to play a beat and how to correctly phrase and play the ride cymbal with good technique. Okay, the first step to playing a jazz beat is to make sure we're playing really good quarter notes on the ride cymbal. When we play the ride cymbal, our quarter note pulse lines exactly up with the bass player, so that's why it needs to be the strongest. And when we play our quarter note, we need to make sure that our stick is always rebounding back. We don't want to play down into the cymbal like this, because then we get a dead sound out of the cymbal. If we can always remember to get our stick to bounce up, it'll create a more resonant, more legato sound, like this. Take a minute and spend some time working on that, making sure your stick always comes back and does not stick down towards the cymbal. Let's see how that lines up with a bass line. For the next step, what we need to do is make sure we're adding the hi-hat on beats 2 and 4. So when we play it, we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. Now obviously we won't be playing with our hands, we're going to be playing with our feet and a stick, but we want to make sure that we play them together and that we get a nice chick out of the hi-hat. Let's see how that sounds in context with a bass line. So now we're going to add the bass drum. The bass drum plays only quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, in conjunction with the ride cymbal and hi-hat. When we play the bass drum, we need to make sure we play it extra soft and that it's feathered. They call it feathering the bass drum. Play it light as a feather to make sure it supports our ride cymbal and hi-hat sound, but doesn't overwhelm the drum set sound. Let's check it out. Okay, so now comes the moment of truth, where we have to add the skip notes to our beat. That is being the and of 2 and of 4 to our ride cymbal pattern. So instead of getting 1, 2, 3, 4, we get 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3. Now, when we add the skip note, it's important that we always have a good quarter note pulse in our ride cymbal. We don't want to accent the ands, we want to accent or emphasize all the quarter notes only. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play 4 bars of just quarter note on the ride cymbal, and then I'm going to add 4 bars of the skip note. And then I'm going to do 4 bars of just quarter note, and then 4 bars of skip note. And when I add the skip note, I'm making sure that I can still hear the quarter note pulse in the sound. Okay, then I'm going to add the rest of the beat. So I'll add the hi-hat and bass drum into that same loop where I play quarter notes only and then a skip note. And let's see how that sounds. That's it for today's lesson. We talked about the basics of the jazz beat, playing the bass drum, hi-hat, and ride cymbal all together. We talked about the phrasing of the ride cymbal, making sure that the stick always bounces back. We talked about how the hi-hat needs to play with the ride cymbal at all times, and that we need to feather the bass drum. In jazz music, we don't need a big, loud bass drum, but a nice, soft bass drum that supports our sound. You'll notice that we didn't talk anything about the left hand. That's because there's a lot to talk about in the left hand. What to do with it, what does it play, when to play it. So we're going to cover that in future lessons. So tune back in next week when we talk about the basics of comping in jazz.